Hello everyone, welcome to this week's spelling lesson. This week we're looking at three words: notice, separate and straight. They're all on the national curriculum list of tricky words for years 3 and 4 to learn in the United Kingdom. Have a look at these words. I'll read a few of them out to you. I want you to see if you can spot what they all have in common. Braces, face, lettuce, police, pencil, rice. Carry on reading. Can you spot what they all have in common? That's right, they all use a letter C to make a soft S sound. But can you spot the rule? Why do they do that in these particular words? Did you notice that when C comes directly before the letters E, I, or Y, we use the S sound instead of the K sound? Celery, C followed by E. City, C followed by I. And cycle, C followed by Y. Let's look at our first word for the week. The first word is notice, and you might notice that this word uses a C to make the S sound at the end of the word. It's followed by an E, and that's why it's doing it. Can you define the word? Tell me the word, class. Odd one out. Put it in a sentence and trace the word on your hand using our cursive handwriting script. The origin of this word is Latin, by the way, from a Latin word notus, meaning known. My definition, in fact, I've given you two definitions because the word can be used in two different ways. A written message that is put up on a wall for people to see, and that's the version of notice I've used in the photograph in the picture there. If you notice something, you see it. That's the other way of using the word, meaning to spot something. Now, if you're using the first definition, a written message, that's a noun, that's a thing that you can touch. And if you're using the second definition, noticing something around you, then you're using it as a verb in the same way that you would use the verb to see. Okay? At that moment, I noticed a huge stack of pancakes. That was my sentence. The odd word out in that list was ignore, because if you're ignoring something, you're not seeing it. Observe, see, and detect are all synonyms for notice, are the words that mean to see something. And you've traced the word on your hand already. Okay, let's learn to spell the word. I've split it into two chunks. The first chunk is the word no, N-O. And the second chunk is the tricky part, using that spelling rule, C followed by E, making a S sound, tis. Okay, write the first part of the word. Which two letters make the no part of notice? That's right, easy, N-O. And the tricky bit, how do we write the tis in notice? T-I-C-E, using our spelling rule, C followed by E, making a S sound. Okay, find the correct spelling in that list of words. Copy it down when you spot it. It was this one, N-O-T-I-C-E, notice. New challenge for this week. Here are all the letters you need to write the word notice. Can you rearrange them into the correct order? N-O-T-I-C-E, well done. Here is the word again with some letters missing. Can you fill in the missing letters? TIC was missing from that word. Can you write it backwards? Esiton. And finally, write the word notice from memory. Notice, notice. Well done, you've learnt to spell the first word. Second word this week is separate or separate. It depends how we're using the word. There are two definitions, one for separate and one for separate. Which word class or classes? Odd one out. The origin of this word again is Latin, from a Latin word separa, meaning disjoined or divided. Put it in a sentence, trace the word on your hand. Okay, definitions. Number one, things that are separate are not joined together or not next to each other. So like the fish that's jumped out of the bowl there, that fish is separate. When you separate people or things, you take them away from each other so that they are no longer together. So I can separate that goldfish from the tank. If you're using the first definition, things that are separate and not joined together, it's an adjective. You're describing something as being separate from the other things. But if you're doing the separating, if you're separating something from something else, then it's a verb. So depending on how you use the word, that defines the word class. The odd word out there was unite, because unite is an antonym of separate. If you unite some things, you put them together. Divide, part, and split are all synonyms for separate. My sentence was, the farmer needed to separate the cows from the sheep. And then please trace the word on your hand if you haven't already. Let's learn to spell the word. I've split it into 3 chunks, and I think if you say the word like this, separate, you will remember how to spell it. Separate. It's the middle chunk, the blue chunk, that people tend to spell incorrectly. So remember, it's R in the middle. Separate. Take a picture with your brain and let's practice. First chunk, sep. There we go, S-E-P. The middle tricky chunk, what did I say? I said R, didn't I? S-E-P-A-R. And finally, how do you write the 8 on the end? That's right, S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E, 8 on the end, a bit like I ate a cookie, A-T-E. Can you find the correct spelling now in that set of 4? 3 of them are incorrect, 1 of them is correct. That was the correct one, separate. Here are the letters you need to spell separate or separate. Put them in the correct order, please. S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E. Can you finish the word? S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E, separate, separate. And write it backwards. Etapas. Write the word from memory, finally. S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E. You can spell separate, you can spell separate. Well done, very good work. Let's move on to our final word. So the third and final word this week is straight, and this is a really tricky word to spell because it simply just follows its own rules. I can't think of any other words that use AIGHT to spell that eight sound. We've already learnt to spell the number eight, EIGHT. It doesn't spell it the same way in this part of straight. We've got a blend at the beginning of three letters making the str sound, str. So it's an all-round tricky word to spell, and that's why we're learning it. Okay, join me on the next slide for the answers. Straight. So if something that is straight does not bend or curl. If you say that something is straight, you're using it as an adjective. You're describing something by saying it's straight. It's a Middle English word, this word. It was a past participle in the olden days of stretch. That's where it comes from. Do you have straight or curly hair? My sentence was a question sentence today. And the odd word out in that list was curved because horizontal, vertical, and parallel are all different kinds of straight lines when we're looking at lines in maths. Curved is not straight, it's the opposite. And you've traced the word using our cursive handwriting scheme on your hands. Let's practice spelling it. So I've split this really tricky word into three chunks. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 letters making that one syllable word straight. Very tricky. So the opening blend, str, that's your beginning part. Then the tricky A sound, A, being spelt with 4 letters, AIGH, and then your end sound, t. So the really tricky part's the middle section, but the red section's not that easy either. So take a picture with your brain, really concentrate, and then let's practice. Okay, the opening blend, str, 3 letters making that sound. STR, well done. The tricky part, A in the middle, using 4 letters. AIGH, well done if you got that right already. And the end sound, t, nice and easy. To finish it, t, there we go. Hey, can you find the correct spelling amongst these? The last one, STRAIGHT, straight. Finish the word. I've given you the opening blend, str. How do we write the 8? STRAIGHT. Write it backwards. This is really tricky. Forgots. And write it from memory. STRAIGHT. Very well done if you can spell all 3 of this week's words. If you can't, keep practicing. And for your homework, to practice these words even more, I'd like you to put each of the spelling words into a sentence. If you're able to write 2 different sentences for words that have more than one meaning, so notice has got more than one meaning, whether you're using it as a verb or a noun, and separate and separate, whether you're using it as an adjective or a verb. So you could, if you're able to, write 5 sentences for me. 2 for notice, 2 for separate or separate, and 1 for straight, please. Then, when you're reading, I'd like you to look for any of these words in your reading material, or any words that are using that spelling rule that we looked at. C making a S sound instead of a K sound. So lots of things to spot in your reading. Copy those sentences down or take a picture of what you find in your reading material and send everything to Class Dojo, where I will be delighted to receive it. Thank you for joining me for Spellings Again this week. Bye for now.